Hey, welcome back to the Board Game Closet. My name's Jimmy, and today we're going to be taking a look at Imperial Settlers. It's put out by Portal Games, plays in roughly 45 to 90 minutes for 1 to 4 players. So let's take a look at what you get in the box. That took a while. So Imperial Settlers is a card-based game where you're going to be building an empire. So you're settling a little kingdom and you're trying to build it, do the best that you can, and you're going to build it by buying cards that will in turn give you things so ultimately you can get victory points. As in every other game known to man, it's all about victory points. So they give you this nice little tracker here where you can keep track of which round you are on. It's played out over 5 rounds, and the person who gets the most victory points at the end of that round wins the game. So in the base game, I believe that they're going to be coming out with expansions. It actually says it right on the back of the instructions. So they have plans to bring out expansions, but in the base game, you have 4 different factions or groups of people. So you could become the barbarians, you could become the Romans, you could be the Egyptians, or the Japanese. And each one of these factions comes with their own specialized deck. So this is a deck of cards that only you, if you're the barbarians, gets to pull from. So the Romans, Egyptians, and Japanese each have their own decks, and then they have a common deck of cards that everyone draws from. So at the beginning of the game, going to be, they recommend you starting with the barbarians and the Romans, as the Egyptians and Japanese kind of escalate things a little bit. But to get started, you could be the Romans and the barbarians. My wife and I played this game last night. She was the Romans, I was the barbarians. So at the beginning of the game, you're going to draw a couple cards out of your deck, and then you're going to do this little drafting mechanic, kind of like in Seven Wonders or some other games like that that do drafting. So basically, you do the number of players plus 1 card, and then the first person goes through the cards and looks and sees what they want. They take it, pass a card to the next person, then they pick what they want, and then discard the last card. So with your cards in your hand, you're going to, once you get all of your cards done, then you're going to do a production phase. And at the top of your little placard that you have in front of you, it tells you what you're going to produce. And so if you are the Romans, on each turn you're going to get 2 workers, 1 raise, 1 shield, 1 wood, and 1 stone automatically. And you get to add to that as the game goes along. But that's what you get during production on your first round. So you would actually go in, you get your raise, your shield, and then all the other stuff that they said that person gets. You get 2 workers, a wood, and a stone. So that would be all of your resources that you get to use on that round. So what are you going to do on a turn? Let me push these to the side so that we can kind of see how this works. So if you're the Romans, you're going to look at your cards and you get to do a few actions. So there's a couple actions that are built in, like at the bottom you can do this action where you can always spend 2 workers to get 1 resource of any type. The other thing that you can do is that you can build some buildings. So let's say that this was my hand and I wanted to build the new forest. It cost me a wood. So I've got a wood, so I pay that in and then I'll build that. What's unique about this game is on the right side of the cards, you're going to put all of the common cards. And so anything that you get from this deck, you're going to build on this side. And then anything that you build from your hand, your specialized faction deck, is going to be on the other side. And so they've got these laid out kind of in a unique way where it's production type buildings, feature type buildings, and action type buildings. And the cards actually show you where you're going to build those because they have little roads that connect. And so the one that goes on the bottom doesn't have a road underneath it. The one that's in the middle has like a 4-way deal, and then the one that's on the top doesn't have a top road. That'll kind of make more sense when you actually play the game and you see it. But basically that instantly helps you know where you're going to play this on the board. So you pay the cost to build it, which will be in the right-hand corner, and then it tells you what you get. In this particular one, you get an action. If you spend 1 person, 1 worker, you gain 1 wood. And you can do that twice. So let's say for some reason you thought that you needed wood a whole lot. You pay to build that, and there it is. Some cards have a benefit when you build them. They'll tell you when you produce or when you build this building, you get something instantly. So it might be a worker or wood or food or whatever. And then other ones have to do with maybe production. So every round you can increase what you produce automatically. And then there's also things that you can do that can help you maybe store things or do different things. And it's spelled out pretty easily on all the cards. So on your turn, you take all of the actions that you have possible and you go back and forth. So I'll take a turn and then I pass to the next person, and then they take, I don't want to use the word pass because that's specific to the rules, but you say, okay, I'm done, the next person, the next person, the next person, until everyone has passed, and then the action phase ends. At the end of the action phase, you do the cleanup. And so cleanup is pretty basic. You basically get rid of every resource. You don't keep anything unless your faction says that you get to keep something specific. So like the barbarians, they can store their workers, whereas the Romans can store their rays. And we'll talk about that in a second. So you can store that. So there's different ones, like it says here for the Egyptians, they can store any number of gold, and the Japanese can store any number of food. And these can be changed based off of cards that you build in the game. So you could actually store more things if you paid to build those buildings. I'm trying to think what else is unique about the game. You can also raise, is R-A-Z-E, which I think is kind of a weird term, but basically it means that you're raiding somebody else's village and you're destroying a building. So I could raise the Romans building, and if I do, on this particular one, if I raise them, then I get two pieces of wood. To raise someone else's building, it costs at least 2 rays to do that. Unless they've added a defense token to that particular one, then that raises the cost to raise. Okay, so now that particular building, in order to destroy it and take the reward, it will cost you 3 rays instead of the 2. To do a raise on one of your own buildings, which you're allowed to, you can raise that. In order to do it, then that will cost you 1 raise, and so you pay the cost and then you get the reward for that. So after you've done all those things, after you've done your actions, your raises, you clear out, then you'll bump up the round marker. It's played out over 5 rounds. Clean up and start over again. So you'll pass the first player token to the next person, and then they begin the round again. You get your cards. You automatically get a free card out of your faction deck, and then you get to do the drafting mechanic again to get more cards. What's unique about this game is actually, because it's played out over 5 rounds at the beginning, you're going to be just doing a couple things. But then as you go along, the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th round, it takes longer because you're able to do a whole lot more. And I found by the 2nd or 3rd round, I started to hit kind of a sweet spot where I said, okay, now I know what I need to do. And so then I'm adding extra cards that I can exchange things. So I was having a lot of cards where I could exchange a worker to get a wood, and then I could take a wood and get a victory point, you know, or something like that. Or I could exchange a worker for a gold, and then I exchange the gold for a food, and then the food would give me, you know, whatever. So it was kind of like this machine that started being built where I was doing this to do this, and I got my victory points. And there are kind of like in Seven Wonders where you have guilds where it would exponentially kind of build. You know, there's other cards, especially for the Romans, where they would have that, you know, maybe where if you get a gold for every gold building that you've built. And so you might be getting 3 gold every time because you have so many golden buildings built. And so that's kind of cool how that works. Plays out over 5 rounds. At the end, whoever has the most victory points is the winner. It was really neat to see how that played out, because when you're raiding somebody else's village and you're destroying their buildings, like you could totally like destroy their plans, and now because they were working up to do this whole I can use a whole lot of workers thing, and then you start taking away their extra workers, like it really changes their plan of attack. Okay, so what do I like about Imperial Settlers? I like the fact that there's not a board like Settlers of Catan and you're trying to do all this stuff and working with people and moving all this stuff. I get to control my board. It's right in front of me as I'm playing, you know, and as I build out, it's kind of cool because you get to see how it starts expanding, you know, and I'm just throwing these out here, but you know, you're able to start building this kingdom out and it starts to get bigger and bigger. I don't know what it is about games like this, but I love being able to say, well, I get this, and then this says that I get this, and then that says that I get that, you know, and you start to build, and it just grows, so the complexity grows with you as the rounds go along, so it kind of carries you through. I love the components to the game. I have heard some critique about the artwork, but I kind of like it. It just feels like this little tiny world that you're in control of, you know, like a little video game or something, and I like that. I love the components. They went all out with the wooden pieces when they could have just done cardboard. I appreciate that. I like that they've included some extra stuff just for solo variants. I mean, they added some extra stuff in here, first player token. It's really nice stuff. The instruction manual, I think, is really well laid out. It walks you through everything that you have to, so if you're unsure of one part of the round order, you just jump to that page and they walk you through it. And then on the very back, they've got a rules summary where they take you through just the basic rundown of how this works. The only thing that I wish that they would have had was just a little player aid, maybe just another little card that gave you the round order. It's not like you're going to need it after a few rounds, but at least, you know, at the beginning you can kind of follow it through. Okay, here's all the actions that I can do. Here's what's coming next. Just some of those types of things. It's going to make it to the table a lot because it's easy to play. It adds complexity with some strategy. I'm really excited to dive into these faction decks to see what else is in there, what other kinds of things could I do, what other kind of strategies. And then even the common deck, you know, there's a lot of stuff in my last game, even though I lost by 2 points, I'll add to my wife. There were some things that I thought, you know, if I just would have had an extra raise at the beginning, you know, production raise every time, man, I could have totally messed her up every single round because she was the Romans and she was able to destroy my buildings, and because I was barbarians, I had to have a specific raise to be able to attack her. Anyways, but I'm excited to play more and dive into this thing and be able to get those specific cards that I want to. Something else I didn't mention earlier is that you can make deals. So you can take your faction-specific cards and you pay a food, and then you're able to flip that over, slide it under your thing, and then every time you get that production item, whatever that is, if that's a card, a wood, a stone, a food, whatever. I like it. Check it out, Imperial Settlers. It plays pretty quick. I would say it's true to the box time of 45 to 60 minutes. I'm excited to play this with more people to see how that works, where you got 3 other people that have the potential to attack you all the time. I think that could be really cool. I don't know. So check it out, Imperial Settlers.